Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to speak again. I will touch on many of the things that came up in the session from Christian about capacity building. I want to give a little bit the bigger picture of what we plan in the space of capacity building over the 5 years. You know this figure now, and as one of the colleagues pointed out earlier, most importantly, we do have a fifth component, which I didn't present this morning, but the fifth component encapsulates all this capacity building. We actually quite deliberately structured the components of the project like this to have capacity building as really a separate component. What we've seen sometimes in international projects, all the work gets done, and then perhaps in the last 12 months of the project, we think about capacity building and we add on some training, and that comes really at the end. So by having this as a standalone component, we really want to emphasize that capacity building cuts through all 4 other components of the project and cuts across the full 5 years. So it's something we really give particular focus to in this project. In terms of our philosophy or our overall approach to capacity building, I think Christian touched on this before. We really see these 4 different entry points for the capacity building. One with the state or the local authority, so capacity building with those who are responsible for issuing the warnings, for carrying out the warnings. We have many of those experts in the room today. The next level is with the technical experts who are doing the hazard assessment, the modeling, these kind of people. Very much the focus of today's workshop. And then a key point, which it's really good to see is important for you too, is that we have capacity building with the education sector. So with the universities and also perhaps with schools is something that we could explore. And then lastly, capacity building with the local people. And that's something where we particularly need to work with the local partners who know these communities best. In addition, as Alfred has just presented, we have a big component on ensuring the learnings of this project go beyond Central Asia. So the knowledge platform is also meant to showcase the success of this project to the international audience. In terms of the capacity building activities today, or that will come out of today, the best practice guidance document, etc., this is very much focused on these first 2 user groups. So the best practice guidance document, and I think the point to make here is in relation to a comment that came before the coffee break, this is the point where we give the direction forward. So this, if you like, is the concrete output, the most important output from the first 12 months of the project. And of course, we could have, back in Switzerland, the last months, drafted such a guidance document. We could have came here today and presented the international guidance document. We could have given a long presentation on this. But I think most will agree that that's not the best approach. We want to turn it around. We start with learning from you, taking your experiences, and then we complement this and align those experiences to what we see being done in global mountain regions. So that's very much our philosophy to this best practice guidance document. Really based on local expertise and complemented with international experience. This will be an iterative process in terms of drafting this document. We will produce a first draft, if you like, something like a proceedings from this workshop. We will share it with all of you, and you will all have the opportunity to give feedback, constructive feedback, and become co-authors of this guidance document. The key point is that this is something like a large document that we keep adding chapters to. So first chapter, if you like, will be based on this workshop. So with a focus on the monitoring and the hazard assessment. As we go into year 2, the focus will then perhaps be to the downstream modeling, the different tools we can use for doing the hazard mapping downstream of communities, the risk mapping, vulnerability mapping, these kind of things. Chapter 3, which could perhaps be the focus of a 3rd workshop in the 3rd year of the project, would then be the actual design of the early warning systems itself, and so on and so on. This is just ideas at this stage, but this is just to make the point that what we will come out from this workshop is really the first of several chapters that will be part of this document. And we would welcome your suggestions also on what you would think important to be in such a document. And just to repeat the point I made earlier today, this is not a guidance document for us here. It's really an output for the future scientists. It's something that will guide similar projects across the region. And we are all the authors, the people that provide the expert input to this document. I'll hand over to my colleague soon, who will introduce one of the concrete products that we've produced over the past few months. This is a toolbox that we will develop throughout the project. A toolbox to assist how you map lakes, how you do the hazard assessment, how you model the downstream flood. These, again, based on the needs assessment survey, we already got some good ideas from that about the sort of tools that you would see as being important. So this will really be not the tools that we think that you need, but the tools that you tell us that you need to complement the work that you're doing. And naturally, in this first 12 months of the project, the first tool that we actually worked on is to assist the monitoring of glacial lakes, and we will introduce that shortly. One key point that's come out of today, but also from the needs assessment, is you would like to see more tools or perhaps training on tools for the downstream flow modeling, things like Flow 2D, these kind of models that are being used. These are the kind of tools that could go into such a toolbox. So not always tools that we create from scratch, but also bringing together the best tools that you want to see being part of such a toolbox. And we will provide training, face-to-face training on these kind of tools so that the next generation of scientists are familiar with these tools. Lastly, I just want to, it's not something we'll have a lot of time today to speak about, but it is something we could perhaps discuss tomorrow as we sit in the smaller groups. But as I mentioned, training and capacity building in the education sector is absolutely a fundamental component of this project, and pleasing to see that you all see that as being important as well. This is where we really aim to generate and to ensure these skills are passed on to the younger generation of scientists, the people that will be undertaking the scientific assessment, doing this work in the future years. We have some ideas already. We're underway with some components of how we would actually address capacity building in the education sector. We will start with, or we have started with, a distance learning module. This was largely driven out of the COVID situation. We knew within the first 12 months of the project, our opportunities to come to Central Asia would not be as frequent as we would normally like. So the first concrete output will be this web-based resource full of information, modules, exercises relating to glacial hazards. We could look at how we can contribute to courses, to modules, as we talked about before. That, as we said, will need to be discussed at the country level from experience. It's even in Switzerland, it's not so easy to introduce an entire new module, but perhaps we can contribute in some cases, some lectures or exercises to an existing module. But this is something we can take up in the discussions tomorrow. Summer schools and training camps are something concrete that we have identified that we will do. I think this is really a good opportunity. There's existing activities along these lines, so we could align with some of those activities, some of those summer schools, and have them focused on activities relating to the GLOFCA project. Joint research is also another great way of imparting our experience, so we could have joint research project with master's students, etc. These are some of the ideas that we could look to discuss with you. And finally, something we've been doing in some surrounding countries is to actually work with the school children. So going one layer deeper. Not just going to the school children and telling them about the project, but actually engaging them in experiments, engaging them in ways where they can go out and collect data, so they become part of the project. So these are just some of the ideas, and we look forward to discussing that tomorrow further on the country level. Just to finish, this is a kind of distance learning module. This gives you an idea of the kind of thing we will be producing as a distance learning module. You see here, this is something we did in a project with SDC. You see a number of different modules there on different topics, fundamental glaciology through to through to GLOF and natural hazards, etc. For each of these modules, you can then click and you will get summary material, overviews. You'll get a series of lectures, you'll get practical exercises and additional resources. So this is the kind of idea that we want to implement in this first 12 months. We want to pilot this with selected institutions in around April next year. So we hope this is a way to get the universities on board and perhaps becomes the starting point for more deeper interventions with the education sector. So with that, I will hand back to Holger and yeah.
Thank you, Simon. We have time for one or two short questions or feedback if you have any. Yes, please.
Thank you, Simon. I was wondering, are you also considering any apprenticeship for the relevant specialists from the government agencies? Because the experience shows that conducting the trainings and summer schools and like kind of short-term field visit might not be that impactful if you, compared to having apprentices working with you for a longer time. And maybe it could be something that you can consider before you proceed with the field exercises. And I think that would make, the knowledge stay within the structure in a more efficient way. Thank you.
By apprenticeships, you mean?
Apprenticeship. So by apprenticeship, I mean that, like, for instance, under the Remote Hazard 1 project, there was an experience where the specialists from Hydromet were taken to IG Boku University and spent there like about 4 or 5 months, who worked with the scientists on the glacial GLOFCA study, as well as the reporting and all other assessment and analysis. So this is something what I mean by this.
Yep, I think that's an excellent idea. We've discussed something along those lines. So either before the summer school, perhaps even coming out of the summer school, you could during the week of the summer school or 2 weeks, come up with a proposal, like a research topic, an idea, and then over the subsequent months, you could have that apprenticeship where you carry out that research. So that could be one way of kind of twinning the summer school with some sort of longer term program. We also talked about international exchange. That could also be something that we could look to include.
Yes, Christine, please.
Yes, thank you, Holger. Thank you, Simon. I just wanted to add on this that, as you know, we have helped a few years ago is establishing a youth network, and I have here with us, we have our representative who will be hopefully coordinating this network now more actively. So I think we have already discussed this idea. I don't know how Zainura exactly called it, but we call it mentorship, basically, yeah, some sort of a mentorship program for young people where they could actually go to the site, learn from the experts, but also transmit the knowledge that they will obtain to the community. So we would really like to see this linkage between scientists, young people, and the community. So as a result of some material, yes, so basically just to have also the linkage strengthened with the communities. And I think that goes very much along with the last aspect that you mentioned, Simon, the citizen science as well. So we should see, I think that's also very important. Now for UNESCO, we also try to promote this citizen science much more. So if you also have any experience, for instance, in other regions on that, yeah, would be great to work on that together. Thanks.
Yeah, just to quickly comment, what we've seen in other regions is that school children can sometimes be the gateway to bring about change in a community. So if the children go home with information, if they've been part of the project, they tell their parents and so on and so on. So I think that's an aspect we need to really exploit as part of this project.
Yes, we have one last question. Oh, we have two. No, okay, please. Mr. Kayumov, last question for Simon.
Спасибо, уважаемый Саймон. Я так думаю, что вот многие пока еще не в курсе. В педагогическом университете открыли новый факультет по глицологии, специализированная кафедра по глицологии. Вот там они делают курсовые работы, делают дипломные работы. Я думаю, что если бы как бы скоординировались бы с этим факультетом, с этой кафедрой, было бы прекрасно. Потому что они независимо от вашего проекта будут это делать, но чуть-чуть, если вы поддержите или пригласите их в экспедиции или чего-то, летнюю школу, чего-то, было бы прекрасно. Потому что сейчас вот на данный момент они 3 темы делают по прорывоопасным, вот именно Кизилсу и в верховье реки вот Варзоба. То есть уже это есть. То есть надо воспользоваться то, что есть. Я думаю, что это было бы вообще хорошая кооперация, потому что специализированные кафедры в Таджикистане по глицологии, это, в общем-то, что можно.
Thank you. Yeah.